and inland fisheries in Germany, alongside Heidelberg University, proved that methane gas is released as blooms die. In addition to methane, as blooms die and decompose in large amounts along the shoreline, they can produce hydrogen sulfide, which smells like rotten eggs, and that's certainly, I think, what everybody has been smelling of late. So, exposure to these gases can cause irritation to eyes and the respiratory system, neurological conditions, both major and minor, weakness, slurred speech, nausea, vomiting, and cardiovascular problems. And cardiovascular, of course, would be long term. Effects of exposure on animals. Blue-green algae or cyanobacteria is highly toxic to all animals, often fatal to small animals and livestock. Multiple reported deaths have happened surrounding Lough Neagh of both domestic and wild animals, and there have also been deaths of dogs that have picked it up in Castle Rock Beach. So our next slide, we're moving on to our drinking water then. Just to text out anything. So over 40% of NI's drinking water is sourced from Lough Neagh by NI Water, and NI Water states that the water quality has not been affected by the recent BGA blooms. Water from sources affected by BGA blooms can taste earthy or musty with unpleasant odour, and our followers are telling us in their droves that their water is tasting and smelling musty. Research from the US Environmental Protection Agency states that conventional water treatment can remove intact cyanobacterial cells and low levels of cyanotoxins from source waters, but may struggle during severe bloom events. So that's the bad news over, and we're moving on to the good news now. Possible methods to lower the level of nutrients in Lough Neagh and treat harmful algae blooms. So we have application of materials such as hydrogen peroxide, aluminium sulfate, Foslock, biocar, etc. Ultrasonic sound wave applications, for example, LG Sonic. I just want to let you know we have a rep from LG Sonic with us this evening that we only found out today was going to be in attendance. So anybody that wants to ask him any questions in the second half, give us a wave. Hello. He's over here. He wants to talk to all you lovely people from NIEA and Dara. A review of the current methods and timescales for slurry management, riparian buffer strips and buffer strips around the loch, upgrading sewage and wastewater treatment works, and septic tank health programme. I will just say as well that this list isn't exhaustive, and we're not commenting here on the feasibility of these things for Lough Neagh. That's up to our departments to establish that. Now the next few slides will cover some of these things in a little bit more detail. So I've got here an example of a riparian buffer zone or buffer strip. So these are zones placed between agricultural land and the water courses into which they drain. They intercept and slow runoff and shallow groundwater, and shallow groundwater moving through the root system. They're made up of narrow strips of dense grass planted closest to the farmland, followed by shrubs, then slow-growing trees, with fast-growing trees planted closest to the watercourse, and lastly stream bank plantlings, which also help to stabilise the riverbanks. And whilst I was researching these, I actually found that grants have already been made available to farmers through the Environmental Farming Scheme on the DARE website to actually create and plant these riparian buffer strips, with or without vegetation on them. So this one is ultrasonic sound treatment, and this is a video.
To understand how ultrasound waves target blue-green algae, it is important to know their growing mechanism. Most blue-green algae are in the possession of gas vesicles. The algae travel up and down in the water column. They travel to the water surface to absorb sunlight for photosynthesis and to the bottom for nutrients. To control the algae, an transmitter is installed in the water that transmits specific ultrasound waves. The sound waves can spread through the water column over hundreds of meters. The ultrasound waves create a sound layer in the top layer of the water, which affects the buoyancy regulation of algae, fixing them in the water column. Due to a lack of sunlight and nutrients, the algae will sink to the bottom of the reservoir, where they eventually will die and decompose. The ultrasonic treatment reduces up to 70 to 90% of the algal bloom and prevents the formation of new algae. The algae sonic ultrasonic treatment is proven to be safe for humans, fish, and other aquatic life. For more information, please visit our website, www.algsonic.com.
Okay, and again, I want to just emphasise, I'm not able to comment on the feasibility of devices such as LG Sonic, and indeed, is there other sonic devices out there, or are these the sole?
Not for a body of water this large.
Okay, so LG Sonic is it. Thank you very much, John. Right, these are not quite as high tech. These methods here. This is Foslock. So Foslock is derived from a natural mineral that binds and permanently removes phosphorus from the water column. It also effectively limits nutrients found in muck and sediment. We've got a quick little sort of a video here that is just telling you exactly what I told you, so I'll move on through that. So that's Foslock. This one here is Biocar. Biocar is a highly absorbent material similar to active charcoal. It's when you're using it to remove nutrients from a water column, it's placed into absorbent stock-like bags, and you can see that in the picture on the right there. The water flows through the bag, and the Biocar pulls nutrients and heavy metals and pollutants from it. Once the bags are full, they're pulled from the water physically, which removes the pollutants from the ecosystem. Suggested uses for this are rivers and river bar mouths, so the likes of the Minola bar mouth or wherever, because obviously then what you're doing is you're limiting the nutrients flow in. So you'll be glad to know we're nearly done. Blue-green algae blooms on the scale of this year's bloom are a fairly new threat to Northern Ireland and to Loch Ness. The last significant bloom was in the late 70s, early 80s. However, they have been a threat to ecosystems worldwide for much, much longer. And we believe that we should look to other lakes that have...
The algae bloom that turned part of Lake Erie,
I'll flick it back a wee second. So we believe we should be looking to other lakes that have been experiencing significant blooms, and we propose that Northern Ireland and our government agencies look to the likes of Lake Erie and the Stonewall Institute for solutions as, well anyway, we propose you look at Lake Erie as a case study. I'm just going to flick this back here and then hopefully get it to play. Come on.
The algae bloom that turned part of Lake Erie toxic just a few weeks ago is bringing a new level of attention to runoff and several other troubles in the Great Lakes. Yesterday, the Federal Environmental Protection Agency announced that it will provide $12 million to the region to help address those problems. Reporter Christy McDonald of Detroit Public Television has our story.
Lake Erie has long been considered the canary in the coal mine for the Great Lakes system. The southernmost, warmest, and shallowest of the 5 lakes, Erie provides an ideal habitat for an unwelcome summer visitor, algae, particularly the toxic kind that caused drinking water problems for Toledo, Ohio several weeks ago. And that makes it an ideal place to look for solutions to that problem. Here at the Stone Lab in Put-in Bay, Ohio, they've been studying algal blooms since the 70s. At that time, significant improvements were made to sewage treatment plants, ushering in 30 years of improved health for Lake Erie. But in the early 2000s, large algal blooms started to reappear, with the worst on record occurring in 2011. For Jeff Reuter, director of the Ohio Sea Grant College and Stone Lab at The Ohio State University, that algae bloom was like nothing he'd seen before.
The bloom in 2011 really got everybody's attention. That bloom was 2.5 times worse than anything we'd ever seen before. And it was really things, and I've been working on Lake Erie since '71, and I've seen these before, but I'd never seen a bloom that when you hit it with a boat, it actually slowed you down. It was that dense.
He believes that bloom, and others like it, are caused by excess potassium, nitrogen, and other byproducts of fertilizer runoff from the farms and towns that surround Lake Erie.
The algae are very much like the grass on our lawns. You know, you put fertilizer on it, it's going to have nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus. It's going to make the grass grow. We put it in Lake Erie and we get algae.
Reuters says those ingredients can be coming from a variety of sources.
When we look at different places around the country where they're having harmful algal blooms, some of them are going to be driven by agricultural loading, but some of them are going to be poor sewage treatment plants or a bunch of failing septic tanks. But in Lake Erie, it's primarily agriculture.
And climate change is proving to be an aggravating factor.
Most of the phosphorus that comes into the lake, probably over 80%, comes in during storms. Climate change leads to more frequent severe storms. And if we have most of the phosphorus coming in from agricultural runoff, combined sewer overflows, runoff off our lawns, if most of that's coming in during storm events and you have more storm events, you're simply going to get more phosphorus. It's that simple.
And more phosphorus encourages the growth of a form of algae known as cyanobacteria. It produces microcystin, the main toxin of concern on Lake Erie. And although Toledo's recent bloom was actually quite small, the densest portion of the harmful algae clustered right over the intake for the city's water treatment plant, turning the tap water toxic. Justin Chaffin, research coordinator at the Stone Lab, tests samples from surrounding water treatment facilities to monitor whether the water is safe for drinking.
If you look at some of your known toxins that you're familiar with, microcystin is about on par being toxicity with something like cyanide, and it's just below dioxin. So it's a really potent toxin.
The United States has no national standard for these toxins, but Ohio has adopted the standards of the World Health Organization, which recommends 1 part per billion for drinking water. On August 2nd, 2014, the toxin levels in Toledo's water came in at 3 parts per billion. Yet the most alarming aspect of that toxic bloom is that it arrived in early August.
It was much earlier than we had anticipated seeing a really bad bloom. Scary for all of us because we know that this bloom is going to stay around here until well into October, maybe the end of October, and it probably won't reach its peak until September. So, the big concerns are the worst is likely still yet to come.
Chaffin has also been studying the toxic algae on a molecular level. His findings provide some clues into how we may be able to stop these blooms from spreading.
During that summer of 2011, we did a molecular study where we tracked the cyanobacteria, the microcystis bloom, throughout the lake and throughout time. Now, that cyanobacteria bloom that started in Maumee Bay in mid-July was the same microcystis that ended up off Cleveland in October. So with that molecular study, we know that if we stop a bloom in Maumee Bay, we'll stop a bloom by Cleveland or by Sandusky. So if we stop it in Maumee Bay, the rest of the lake should be good.
Currently, the only way to stop a bloom from moving is to stop it from forming in the first place. And the only way to accomplish that is to reduce the amount of phosphorus coming into the lake.
I don't think anybody thinks that we're going to make it colder real soon. So we can't address climate change to say, well, the solution is climate change, all we got to do is stop it. The only thing that we control is phosphorus load. And that means we have to change our behavior. Our goal has to be to reduce the phosphorus by about 40%, but that's not something that I think anybody believes is going to happen real quickly. So the first thing that we have to do is arm our water treatment plants with the right technology, the tools, make sure that the people understand, the people that manage the plants understand how to take the toxins out that come into the plant, because clearly toxins will come in.
We're now entering into prime algal.
Very carefully so we don't fall away to stage. So that's it from me, and I hope you found that informative. And thank you for being patient with me and through this thing. Who's our next speaker then? Is it
It's Peter Harbour, but I just wondered, is Joe ready for Peter?
Joe, are you ready for Peter? 2 minutes, okay. Thank you.
Folks, thanks so far for being respectful to your speakers. We just ask that any questions are kept for the Q&A session. We'll try and answer as many questions as possible.
Because the thing wouldn't work like that. It was over like 2 slides on me, and then I couldn't find the place in the notes. Excuse me, but I have lost it. I really want to go for it. How long is it?
Alright. Hey folks, I'd just like to welcome Peter Harvey from the Long Day Partnership.
Oh yeah, maybe. Hello, can people hear me? Yeah? Okay, I'll stand aside. So first of all, apologies for our manager of partnership, Jerry Darby. Jerry's been doing a lot of publicity recently, as you know, and basically he's not well at the moment, he needs to recover, so I'm standing in for Jerry. When I spoke to Mary, she said that you might be interested in a flavour of what we do as a partnership. So I'll run you through that quickly because I know there's other important speakers. And then I'll give you some of my thoughts on how I think we should go forward. And Mary's talk was very informative and thought-provoking, so a lot of good ideas there. But I'll give you some thoughts on what we do and some thoughts on how I think we might go forward. So, top one?
Yes, oh, to the right, Right. Just had it once. Don't make my mistake.
Okay, let's go back one. Okay, right, that's us. Okay, so just to give you a flavour of the partnership and how it's comprised, this next slide should come up, there's a bit of a delay, but I'll talk to you anyway. It's a public-private voluntary partnership. We include representatives from the 5 councils around the loch. We also have representatives from the commercial industries around the loch, and that includes the Loch Fishermen's Cooperative, the Sand Traders, and we were representatives from Shasta Estate as well. We've also good community input from the Cookstown Western Shoreline Area Network,